I'm Manish Tandon. I'm CEO Gaming for Jet Synthesis. I've worked in the gaming industry for the last 10 years, multiple roles, operator, investor, founder, and now current gig as a Jet. Yeah.
So guys, hi, this is Manish here, CEO of Nazara, and now trying to figure out Web3. Uh, that's what I will be going and trying to go and see something in Web3 I can create. Very soon I'll let you know what I'm going to do. Thank you.
Hi guys, good morning. It's Paavan this side. I'm co-founder and CEO of Winzo. It's a leading social gaming platform and very happy to meet you all.
Hello everyone. My name is Kartik. I'm a co-founder and partner at Aream. Aream is a gaming-focused investment bank. We advise on M&A transactions in the gaming space. We have advised on 35 odd deals since 2020 across the world. And in India, we advised Play Simple when they sold to MTG about 15 months ago.
Hello everyone, I'm Animesh Agarwal, CEO and co-founder at ItBit, a premier talent agency for gamers, also a partner at SATL, an esports organization from India. Thank you.
Got it. It's a little hard to hear everyone's voice over here. But anyways, let's just jump into it, guys. I think there are three main topics that we will talk about today. One would be, and mostly it's relating to the Indian gaming market and, the opportunities as entrepreneurs or people who are looking for new business ideas. I would, want this panel to enlighten them, what are the opportunities. If that can be the biggest takeaway from this, that'll be the outcome that I would expect. So the three main aspects is state of play of gaming in India, the 5G and its upcoming impact in the next year, and also Web3. So we'll jump with the first question, and this is to Manish first. How do you see the 5G and its impact in game consumption habits? We saw that the Geo moment happened, and game consumption dramatically increased in India, whether it was viewership as well as playing. So do you see 5G turbocharging that, or will it have an incremental impact?
So I just pick up from where you left. The Geo moment to me came into three forms. One was the volume of gamers literally increased because now you have the cheapest data which was happening. But more importantly, people like us who have been around for 12, 13 years have been sick and tired of hearing that India is a download market, DAU market. And with the high quality, stable, fast speed internet happening on mobile, we finally saw multiplayers happening, which really created a driver of competitive, which led to people doing two things. A, you are buying items in the game, which will help you in improving your probability of winning. And the second is, when you are competing, it becomes social adda, where you start spending on vanity items because it's like a virtual party happening. Those two things really made, and we were kind of discussing and debating numbers outside, maybe $600, $700 million of in-app purchase revenue happening in 2022 versus 50 million happening in 2017. So that's the number growth, which has happened just purely because of infrastructure improvement happening. And my view is, to borrow word what Anuj is saying, turbocharging. Gaming is all about that whole multiplayer behavior. When you kind of start making your own teams and playing it on an everyday basis, it's like what all of us do in physical sports. The gaming really kind of takes that form. And then this 7,500, 125 million people which are playing multiplayer, I believe will double because of the improved speed and stability. And the monetization will grow even more faster because your ARPUs and the transaction frequency will increase. So I believe India is ripe for massive growth in an entertainment competitive gaming environment with your, hopefully, and this is all promises of 5G. We have seen what 3G was shitty product which we had, and before Jio, we also had a very shitty 4G. So I'm assuming an assumption, caveat here is that your 5G is going to be truly good speed. And the home fiber combined with that will do that. Other aspect which I believe is going to further improve this multiplayer competitive behavior is your 3000, 4000 phone, which does not require that graphic card, does not require that processing speed. Again, assumption is that 5G processing can happen on cloud. That will penetrate and increase the footprint of people who can play multiplayer. And combine these two things, I think the whole non-RMG part of the gaming revenue will increase very, very fast.
Got it. So, Pavan, building upon that, how do you see that, uh, these are the macro trends, but gaming wise, what do you think things will change, or what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, like Manish mentioned, I think speed of the internet is probably the single most critical, decisive factor to govern the experience of playing any game, right? Just to sort of also lay down the expectations from 5G uh, very mathematically, currently 4G offers a network latency, or what you also call server ping, जो दिखता है when you, let's say, are playing any game, right, is about 60 to 100 milliseconds. 5G is promising it that it will bring it down to less than 10 milliseconds. Now that is not an incremental benefit, it is an exponential benefit, right? It is something that can really have that delta that can unlock a lot of very different experiences for you. I mean, of course, if you look at different facets of gaming, for example, if you look at real money gaming, of course, you have people putting in monies there. It's very critical that there should not be any breakage in internet at all, right? This experience and this kind of network latency will of course give a far more foolproof experience. If you look at streaming, for example, we see so many times people are like streamers, and Animesh will be able to probably throw a better picture at that, but server ping is, I think, is the is something that like memes are made of and like t-shirts are printed around, right? uh, with 5G, people will not only be able to really play very deep, very immersive games, but will also be able to stream them right away with also, another parallel stream going on where they're able to engage with the viewers. If you talk about from a liquidity standpoint as well, uh, if there is, let's say 5G come in, people from different parts of the world will actually be able to play together. So that will also, not just at an India level, but at a global level, games will be able to also offer larger liquidity pools, which currently does not happen because, of course, the closer as you go farther from your central server, the ping only increases. So I think these are some of the things. Of course, AR, VR, right? When we talk about unlocking way different experiences, currently it's all still mobile, right? I mean, as we look at the future and we're talking about meta, we're talking about AR, VR, those things will require much faster bandwidth, and 5G is going to be the stepping stone on which all of those innovations are really relying. I think this is going to be a very path-breaking overall addition or change that will be coming in the overall infrastructure level, which is going to be something very similar to what happened in 2017, 2018 when Geo launched.
Got it. Kartik, from a global perspective, I think these ecosystem shifts, whether it is geo, the UPI, digital payment easing, I think with 5G from a global perspective would make the India an amazing market going forward, or do you think it's okay? It'll be more wait and see what happens.
Yeah. So I think a couple of key things. I think one is, guess the biggest use case around 5G generally has been gaming. And clearly what's happening with quality of games and with the sophistication of the game engines is there are just better quality games that are being built. And back to what was referenced earlier this morning in the Lumikai state of gaming market in India, clearly I think the biggest beneficiary will be what you can see in terms of experiences in the mid-core and multiplayer games. So clearly with better processing power, better speeds, some of this experience will be way better. And I think from a broader trend, if you look at it, whilst a lot of these AAA titles was very much focused on PC and console, mobile has become a big channel for it, like, Call of Duty Mobile, for example. So I think that bodes well in terms of opportunity set for the types of games which can be launched here. And then hopefully that also spurs the local ecosystem in terms of better games that can be supported on these devices. And with this experience, you can drive better monetization. So I think in India, clearly the growth that we saw from the launch of Geo is well recognized, and I think it's a case study. Similarly, if you see that repeat with 5G, I think it'll get a lot of attention globally with publishers as they see India as a potential market opportunity.
Perfect. Animesh, from a perspective of game consumption and viewership, when we look at the esports spectrum, how do you see this being a path-breaking change that is going to happen, or do you think it's going to not turbocharge, but incrementally increase this?
Yeah, so what I feel with 4G is that 4G did not grow gaming in India. In my perspective, I think 4G brought gaming into India. Especially back by pandemic, it was the best thing, and the tarifa going on between the telcos was the best case scenario for gaming in India. It literally got people to start playing games. So 5G would be a game changer only if it brings in more people rather than giving a better experience. Because if more people don't start getting introduced to gaming or start playing games, just because even 4G was not a bad experience overall. If we look at a shift from 3G to 4G, it's a momental shift, and we are still surviving and doing pretty well in the world of 4G. So I was lucky enough to have a first-hand experience of Airtel 5G last month, where I found where I tested this a very interesting concept called cloud gaming, which I think is the real path-breaking thing in this entire 5G introduction for gamers. So the interesting concept for those who haven't read about it or experienced it, it's about so the entire computation that's required for playing hardcore games happens on the cloud, and even if you are a user with a very low-end device, maybe even a very mid-budget or low-budget mobile phone, you can play the most hardcore games on your mobile, which is being telecasted on a screen, and the computing happening on the cloud. So this, I believe, cloud gaming is the best case use of this technology that's gonna introduce more people to gaming. I mean, like, speed, latency is fine. I mean, like, we are still adjusting. Majority of the gamers would agree that we are still adjusting over the last 3-4 years, and we are pretty fine with it. But for something, maybe for an exponential growth, I think cloud gaming is the next way to it, because more people would start playing games. That's gonna take the industry to the, the next shift that we are looking at. If you're looking at talking about increasing viewership, it's not gonna come from better speeds. It's gonna come from more people start playing gaming, getting into more games. So I think cloud gaming is the thing to look out for. As far as speed and latency are confirmed, it definitely might get us better quality viewers, maybe more viewers from tier 1, tier 2 cities which are now clogged with, the pressure that's coming on 4G network. And as far as the esports experience and all are confirmed, definitely network is the biggest asset to it. So with better infrastructure, maybe we are looking at better gaming experience and better sporting experience overall. I think that should be it.
So from that perspective, do you see more Indian gamers playing more mid-core core games like LOL or more 5 versus 5 MOBAs and that getting more popular? Do you see or do you see that more people will try and embrace these new gaming formats from a esports perspective?
So I think both core and mid-core form a very important part of Indian gaming industry, because core games definitely comes with heavy requirements which does not really suit the economic status of Indian families. So I believe that mid-core and hyper-casual games are very important for the growth and sustainability of gaming in India. We have had situations over the last 3 years wherein the core games came under scanners, and we could not, and everyone was in a confusion, in a dilemma as to how the gaming industry would progress. But that's when hyper-casual games, even if you look at the pandemic, Ludo King did an insane job, and that was a very hyper-casual game, something that reached every nook and corner of the country. So I believe that both form a very important part of the esports structure overall. They have two different parts, of course. I completely differentiate between the esports structure of the both, but both type of games form a very important part. I think it's a mixture of both that gives a complete esports ecosystem.
Got it. So I think conclusion of the panel is probably to look forward to 5G as gaming habits will change. I think that's part of the process for growing of the ecosystem. Any gaming ecosystem goes through it. 5G and new technologies enable newer stuff to be tried on. Will it be a seminal moment? I think the jury is still out. Like we need to wait for that. But globally, this will make us more attractive as a market. That's
And maybe just one quick point, Anu, just to add to that, just building on the point about cloud gaming. I guess the key question is, for games distribution, app stores are the only means right now, right? And I guess the key question is, are telcos going to play a bigger role? And strategically, cloud gaming has been the sort of the opportunity or the promise for them to own more of the distribution and the direct sort of relationship with customers. Now, if that were to pan out that way, and it's not worked out previously, but this is part of consideration for many of the telcos, then it might provide other alternatives for developers from just getting their games out to the users.
got it.
I just have one thing here. Out of how many guys who are sitting here, if 5G were to be launched today, how many of you will go and change your SIM? That shows you, Anuj, that still from a consumer adoption point of view, it's a wait and watch.
Yeah. I think, but 2023 is going to be interesting in that respect. Yep. Moving forward to sort of one of the hottest topics of last year, but continues to now see some maturity come is Web3 and gaming around it. I would actually start with probably the global aspect with Kartik first. That there was a global ecosystem cool down that has happened in this year. This liquidity crunches, maybe moved some capital away from Web3. But do you see interest of global studios, publishers, entrepreneurs, new first gen entrepreneurs, still that active in global in Web3 gaming from a global perspective?
So one is, from a general financing perspective, I think there has been a slowdown. 2022, you will ultimately see that the numbers will be below what 2021 is, but then 2021 was a record year. So even if you look at it and you go back in time, the levels in 2022 will still be better than what we had seen even 3-4 years ago in gaming specifically. And the impact, of course, has been varied depending on the specific categories. So I think on Web3, number one, I think there is continues to be interest at the early stage in terms of investments into companies who are building. You are seeing more experienced teams. So I think there are two schools of thoughts from experienced teams that are setting up Web3 startups. I think now we're reaching a point where it's not mutually exclusive. You need to build games that are entertaining, and then the monetization mechanic will be driven by what you see in Web3. And so now the bar for raising money there is back to what you used to see with classic gaming raises, which is a team that can deliver a great game and then have the conviction that Web3 is the right monetization model. And so if you look at that, actually there have been quite a few raises that have continued. It's nowhere near the level we saw last year, but actually I think that's a sign of maturity in terms of what's actually going to work.
Right. And Manish, to flip it back to you, since you are so interested in Web3, in your introduction you gave that, should Indian game developers, and this is a lot of developers who are sort of thinking about Web3, building free to play or real money gaming, how do you see this as an opportunity? Should Indian developers in 2023 be embracing Web3 development?
Yeah, a gamer is not going to play a game because it's Web3 or Web2. Gamer will play the game because it's fun, it's engaging. I love coming back every day, whether for stress buster, collaborative, competition. So I think those fundamental for the game development, game developer ecosystem doesn't change. Uh, this is a cycle in which a lot of people in last 2 years thought that they will kind of position their offering as Web3 and they will be able to raise money. That day is gone, absolutely gone. So you need to be fundamentally thinking about the same 101 of game as if why would somebody come and play a game again and again? And if you have that answer, addition additional thinking of how to leverage some of the intuitive advantages which blockchain offers and how do you kind of intertwine that in your game. If you're able to kind of present it, then yes, you will have a opportunity to get funded. But if you think it's a masquerading or it's just a funding reason you're thinking of Web3, nothing is going to happen.
Got it. And Pavan, from your perspective, you build a social gaming platform in terms of with the monetization of RMG. But do you think Web3 as a monetization option should be embraced by developers or someone who's building social platforms?
Yeah. So Web3, see, before Web3, let's talk about gaming, right? I think the most important three words in gaming is maza aana chahiye, right? So experience is very, very critical. And if you talk about Web3, of course, there's one part which is solving for great experience. And experience does not take whether it's a Web2 product, a Web3 product, Web1 product, right? And I would say for the last 1.5, 2 years, majority of folks or companies which were trying to ride the Web3 wave, like Manish also pointed out, were like pretty much pasting, or branding yourself as Web3 product, and in haste could not really solve for experience as much. Now, if the experience is not solved, your retention, your engagement, all those very core metrics that really make a game a success are not there, right? And as a result of which, probably some of them saw some instant traction, but eventually ended up becoming a pyramid scheme. Tokens really fell crashing, and it is not like it happened because of certain macroeconomical factors, right? It happened because some of them could not really, even the popular projects, could not really solve the very core gameplay, which would have really made sure that folks coming in today will still enjoy that particular game or that particular project for months or years to come, right? Eventually, people just wanted to make monies and leave, right? And that's why it sort of become a quasi pyramid scheme. I would say folks who are now working in Web3 and gaming, there are two pillars. One is, of course, solving for the core experience. That is 101. That has to be solved, right? It cannot be a Web3 first project. It can be, okay, Web3 can be a feature, okay, we are solving it in Web3 or we're building it in Web3. That is great, right? Of course, Web3 has its own unique benefits. The entire decentralization, it really opens commerce like none other, right? You can really unlock a lot of assets. The same asset that only a developer is now selling to the user. Now the user can sell to a user, the user can teleport it to another game, so on and so forth. So it's definitely going to unlock a $200 billion gaming market globally, to probably a $1 trillion gaming market in next 3 to 4 years. There is potential. There is potential of that exponential boost, and that's why probably a lot of VC money is also chasing that, right? But will it happen in next 6 months? Will it happen in next 12 months? The answer to that is nobody really knows, right? Have people already adopted Web3 as the way to go? Are people totally comfortable with making Web3 transactions? Do people even have those kind of wallets? The answer to that is clearly no, right? Probably 1-2% people are still engaging, but by and large, no. So I would say if there are, and I'm assuming most of you guys here who are going ahead with Web3 gaming are early stage developers. I would say rather than going very hard on just Web3, utilize the next 6 to 12 months in solving for the core gameplay, solving for the core experience of your product, because that is anyway has to be solved, right? And then as and when you think the market softens, as the adoption really pacens up, you can of course add more Web3 elements. I mean, there is no harm at all to build something in Web2 today and then eventually move it to Web3, or have a toggle and take people to Web3, whoever has any kind of a MetaMask wallet. All those strategies can be taken care of, but I would strongly recommend, in my personal opinion, that this is the time to really solve for strong gaming experience. And that's why I think what Kartik also mentioned, right? Right now, majority of the companies who are really coming in from, majority of ventures which are coming in or built by teams which have really built incredible games in the past are attracting a lot of that capital, right? Because they at least know how to build that core gameplay uh, in a in a in a sustainable manner. And yeah, I think that is how I would
Got it.
say it should be looked at.
Right. So next, probably we'll talk about, the jury is still out in Web3, so that's the conclusion. I think all the panelists are saying, there is cool down globally, but if you are long-term vision about any monetization, you should wait it out. And core is to build good games, and monetization will come.
Just one more thing. I would say to anyone who wants to come and do in Web3, I would really, really urge you to read, listen, talk to as many people, build your very deep conviction, very, very deep conviction, and do not jump into it because of that somebody is getting funded or FOMO is happening and all of it. Derived conviction in Web3 is going to kind of completely take you on a ride and you will be left in an uncharted territory because there are so many unknowns. There are so many uh, things which will evolve. There are so many components which will come together. How it is going to really pan out? Who is going to solve for what? There's so many unknowns. So until unless you have built your very deep conviction by doing your own primary research, secondary research, please do not kind of really just get carried away.
Got it. Okay, so moving on, it's more to talk about, the state of play for gaming in India and how 2023 for the Indian market in various different verticals would look like. I'll start with Animesh first. Is Animesh, esports has been as a market growing. I mean, it's kind of picked up momentum, whether it is from the content creator sides, whether it is the tournament organizers, the IP creation, and in that aspect. Do you feel that there is enough brand capital coming into the esports sector in general, and do you see that increasing with the amount of target audience that this genre is able to capture and the eyeballs it is able to generate? Because when me and Manish used to discuss, we used to say it's not justifiable, how much esports eyeballs gets and the brand capital. So do you see that changing in 2023 and your perspective?
Yeah, Anuj. So I believe that 2022 was a great year for Indian esports. Although recently it's been in the market, especially with the condition of the global capital market and the condition of the esports scenario in India. People say that the honeymoon period for esports is over, but I feel that it's not over; it's delayed. I mean, like it's just a matter of time. Obviously, there's a global economic turmoil. There are some regulatory issues. So I feel that it's just a matter of time before things get back to normal. Point one. As far as the the numbers, the money being coming into gaming in terms of brands or investments, I feel that it was increasing at a very good pace. If you look at the spends over the last 1 year in terms of the brand partnership that we have done with gaming content creators, in terms of the prize pools that we have seen coming into the Indian esports system, in terms of what Indian esports teams have been able to achieve in terms of their global impact. Recently, Global Esports got a slot in VCT, which is a very big thing for the Indian market. So I believe that in that way we are growing at a decent pace. Although right now there's a little stagnancy in all the markets, and especially gaming in India has taken a hit. But 2023, I believe that I'm very optimistic. Like, I don't have any other option, to be honest, apart from being optimistic about gaming, to be bullish on that. But, every time I have seen that there has been a lean phase, there have been some people who have backed out of it completely, but people who have stayed have gotten like a huge multi-growth, on their investments. And the correct players still believe in it. And I still, like, if you have the correct partners, correct people working into the industry, there's no way that, the investment would stop or it would look small. As far as is it enough or not, I would say it's okay. I'm not saying that it's less. No way, I don't feel that it's less at all, because it was always it's always growing. It's always feeding the needs of the market. With the growing market, I think we should have enough people investing into the industry to feed the needs of the, the consumption power, to feed the consumption power basically. So overall, in my understanding, I think I'm pretty much satisfied with what's coming into the esports industry in the Indian market, looking at the state of the market for now.
Got it. Manish, just your quick opinion. Do you think it's justified the brand spend on this, considering what it is?
I think there is a heightened awareness around esports streaming among the marketing and agencies. So that has definitely improved considerably. Every agency which I deal with and I understand have now built up esports 1 or 2 member teams. So that's something is really good lead indicator that there is an excitement. However, when I speak to them, they are still not very clear. Is that how do we really measure it? Uh, and there is a format on, I'm not talking about measurement and of views. I'm talking about measurement of how does it really play back in ROI. And if it's a pure brand building to the relevant TG, then a lot of your startup brands, which were really spending, that's where when the winter has come, you will see a problem statement.
Just staying with that, I think the next question is staying with you. Uh, how do you see the game development scene in India in 2022 and 23 going forward? I mean, just to give a context, 4 years ago, we would have not imagined that there are two battle royals or more being built out of Indian gaming studios. They've not yet proven, but the idea of two battle royals being attempted was unheard of in the scene. Do you see moving? Is it static or is it now starting to get some legs and going forward? How do you see?
No, gaming is a function of kitni chini, kitna meeta. And last 2 years, investment in Indian gaming ecosystem happened, which really created certain risk appetite for the entrepreneurs to go and build genres which have large TAM. Second input is when your domestic market increases, you are trying to really getting enthused to create local theme-based games and take popular game mechanics and try to do that. But all of that really comes when there's a capital for you to invest because you could make simpler games with less cost, but if you want to kind of make deep games, it requires money and it requires monies to multiple iteration experiment. My only worry sitting here today is that the funding for the 0 to 1 deep games or large games or double A, I will not say triple A, I think it's going to be difficult in the next 6, 9 months. So funding is something, there was a hype, you got money, now everybody, even local big companies are thinking about the capital allocation. The other companies are, investment guys are looking at whether they should invest or preserve. I think in that, the only hope I honestly have is gaming focus funds because if they have taken money, they have to deploy, or your ex company, which needs to kind of really figure out in India to do and invest, but they are not early stage ticket size companies. But investment is what I'm worried at least for next 6 to 12 months, and that may really the acceleration which was we are seeing of entrepreneurial venture and building good quality games may take a little slowdown.
Got it. Pavan, coming to you on this, the game development scene. I mean, you work with a lot of developers. Do you see the quality and maturity improving over the past year? And do you see that going forward, it will keep getting better?
Sure. So just to set some context here, Winzo is essentially a gaming platform and we integrate third-party games, early stage, late stage, into our single application, and people are able to monetize their games off Play Store as well via RMG route. And we have about 100 plus games, work with close to 60, 70 developers. Out of them, I would say about 45 developers are in India, right? And I would say for any sector per se to really go ahead and go through the roof, some of those macroeconomical indicators have to align, right? Of course, consumption being the single most important driver. Last 4 years have really taught us. So post Geo, gaming sort of really started, and then like once COVID was there, then it was really out there in front of all of us, right? I mean, the best of the best, the greatest of the greatest talent in the industry was locked at their homes, and even those who were never used to call themselves gamers were probably playing one game or the other or were seeing their family members playing games, right? So then it really became very clear that the consumption is massive, right? Over and above that, you see there are some really dedicated vehicles which are now investing. You have, of course, Lumicai, there are a bunch of dedicated VCs now who are doing gaming. There are a lot of gaming companies have set up their own fund. We've ourselves set up a $30 million fund. And I would say these are some important ingredients to kickstart the engine, right? And the engine is kickstarted. Right now, there is a lot of enthusiasm. I would say this enthusiasm is only going to grow month over month, year over year. And the idea should be that we need to create an atmosphere where the best talent, right, the best engineering talent, the best design talent, the best graduating class every year, the topmost students should opt for making a gaming company for India, for the world, or for within India itself, right? And I think all the participants of the ecosystem are somehow trying to create that achieve that particular goal. In current times, if you see, there is of course a lot of projects, a lot of great projects that are being built. Of course, we all know that it's time consuming to build a great game, right? And some of those games will be out in 1 or 2 years. People have now really understood what kind of quality India needs, right? So we all know that, let's say BGMI or Free Fire, who've gone ahead and got masses to really play the game, they have also set certain bars which are fairly high. So now we know that if you're talking about a mid-core game or a hardcore game, AAA title, what kind of games are we really talking about that will glue Indians? So that kind of projects are taking time. People are really building, and I think there are a lot of funding also happening on those fronts. I would still say that because of the early stage cycle, a lot of reliance is on the casual single player titles, multiplayer titles, but projects that are getting built in 3 to 6 months, I would say large part of those projects do not really succeed. I would say 80 to 90% of them do not really make that cut. But I think that is very understandable, right? Unlike any other sector, gaming and especially game development is kind of a hit or miss, right? You can be as methodical as you want, but even the greatest of greatest studios will deliver probably only one hit out of churning 5 titles, right? I think that is what is happening. One thing that I personally feel is that there should be some kind of a talent import that should happen, right? If you see a large project, a large AAA game that has to be made, I can literally count on my fingers how many people in India are capable of or have actually seen those kind of projects end to end, have made those kind of deliveries or have been part of those kind of teams out here in India. I think if you are able to sort of get that kind of a talent in, right, we will really be able to pull up because people are keen to learn, people are keen to build. They need folks who can really coach them, train them, probably manage the end-to-end project. I think that can really act as a very positive stimulus to the entire game development scene here in India.
Maybe just a couple of things to add. I think, obviously I've been covering gaming for a long time, but if you look at the current state, there's never been a better time in terms of the number of dedicated funds to gaming who, other than you obviously have Lumicai focused on gaming, in India. As Paavan was saying, you have some strategics who are also willing to invest, but you also have a whole global pool of capital that is available for gaming, and they have raised money to deploy specifically in this sector. Now, of course, what happens in these periods is bar goes up, but it's probably been as good as it has ever been as far as early stage capital availability is concerned, right? And I think that's probably something to keep in mind because whilst there is gloom and doom, the reality is we are talking about a massive sector, massive user base, and availability of investment or dollars who are focused on investing in the sector.
So, thanks. I think we'll skip to a question which is important, and I want maybe just, since we have 5 minutes, maybe a minute each of you. It's important because in 2023, this is one of the themes for this industry will embrace, and I'll probably start with you, Animesh. how do you see 2023 from a regulatory perspective? Some things, from like esports specifically, with the regulations affecting your business technically. How do you see that? Will it be for the better, or you think there is going to be some more bumpy rides along the way?
Yeah. So in my perspective, with if you look at the demographics of India, densely populated country, so definitely there has to be strictest level of regulatory coming from the government. That is something we don't have an option. It feels very good when I fly down to Dubai and see that okay, we can do so many things here. There's so many opportunities here. But if you come to the Indian market, we have seen how the gaming market in India shaped. And obviously, when if I as a layman I try to just compare these two nations, I see that okay, in India ये चीजें होने होंगे, जो laws है, rules है, वो उतने strict होने होंगे. So, regulatory perspective, I think it's for the the developers, the stakeholders in the industry to figure out and take maybe example from the RMG and SBG industry, how they perfectly gelled into the and did really well in compliance with all the regulatory hardships that they had to face over the last 6-7 years. All the big MPL Dream 11, how they paved their way. So I believe that there has been benchmark that they have set for others to follow. And I think people, a lot of general people look at it otherwise that okay, they made their way and now there's RMG and stuff. But I look at it in a very different society. I think it's a great thing that they have been able to do, which normal game developers have not been able to figure out. So I believe that regulatory is something that's always gonna stay. For esports perspective, obviously, with the recent AVCG task force being set up and all the stuff happening in the government, things are moving. But on the esports perspective, it would be great if there is more recognition, not in our hands, but it would be great if the government steps in a little bit more and we have more sanity in the market. We have a clear picture of how the next 5 years are going to look for the esports scenario in India from regulatory perspective. I think we are bored of the shocks and surprises that come every 6 months. There needs to be some sort of uniformity, which is very important if this industry has to grow and if core gaming has to grow in India. So 2023, looking forward to how things become more uniform and maybe a little bit of more government, taking more interest and more of executions coming from the regulatory perspective, I would say.
Got it. Kartik, from a global perspective, when global companies look at India as a viable investment destination, as it's one of the next fast-growing sectors uh, in the global gaming market, how do you see the regulatory framework? How do global guys look at this market?
Yeah, I think, look, if you look at broadly gaming, there are regulation and what's going to come has a big role. So, for example, even in the West, loot boxes, there's been a lot of discussion, deliberation, whether that needs to be regulated. Certain countries have, other countries have not. But that's like a core monetization mechanic in gaming, as an example. So I think, regulatory clarity is quite important, particularly if people are investing in expanding their games in this market. And I think certain things in terms of obtaining clarity, like you have BGMI suspension, for example, that certainly impacts the sentiment because these are longer term investments. Regulatory clarity as to how gaming is viewed is quite key to then attracting long-term capital. I think that this goes without saying. So hopefully, with more of that coming through, I think it'll get more global publishers to invest into this ecosystem.
Got it. Manish, from your perspective from Web3, and they've been again pretty bumpy in terms of perception of how this industry is moving regulatory wise. How do you see this changing or it
I think
getting more regulated?
Web3 itself is unknown. So for government to really kind of figure out what to really make a regulatory policy around it will require first industry to understand what are the contours, what are the components of it, then really kind of evangelize and interact with various stakeholders across ministries, center, state to really create a common view and common framework of what is that we are talking about across multiple use cases and multiple things. I think the one of the most exciting thing which I have seen is the CBDC concept paper and the pilot which had started. To me, that shows that at least intent is very, very strong. And Honorable FM's statement also that India would really create framework around crypto, around blockchain, which would be kind of leading, allowing India to lead. I think those are very strong intent statements, which means that a lot of job will be done on trying to kind of figure out the lay of the land and what is that as an industry and government we work together to do this. And this is a great opportunity to kind of really shape things beyond exchanges, because the first wave of crypto was all about trading, exchanges, speculation, which leads to money laundering, black and all that stuff. Now, the narrative is moving beyond that, and that's the best news which is coming out.
Understood. Pavan, and your perspective on, gaming as well as RMG at a high level. Do you see regulatory framework smoothening out for you guys?
Yeah, I think I would say it's all in a positive direction for sure. Of course, the ride is bumpy, but the ride is definitely upwards. The government has definitely made notice, and they've definitely shown through multiple actions that they are taking gaming as a sector very, very seriously, right? It has got revenues, it has got user, it has got that influence to really impact 500 million consumers in a country, uh, be it RMG, be it non-RMG, game development, game design. I think overall, government is really trying to figure out how to make a safe space that then basically creates an entire industry into a very strong flourishing mode. Talking specifically about RMG as well, if you see there are these centralized interministerial task force that is set up, which will probably come up with centralized regulations, which is going to be a very positive step for real money skill gaming industry, which currently is kind of a little not here, not there, in terms of regulations. Though, of course, as per the Supreme Court, uh, there's a positive judgment. But by and large, I would say for early stage developers, the idea is to just go and build. By the time things will be scaling, hitting those scales in next 1.5 to 2 years, hopefully there'll be a lot more clarity on almost all aspects of gaming. So, I mean, I think for the sake of folks who are attending this one or are either planning to start something in gaming or are already in early stages, do not worry as much about regulations. Just go ahead and build. By the time you'll be at a scale, majority of clarity should be there at your disposal.
Got it. So I think that's what we had. I will just have one more question, and I'll give 4 options to them. They need to select just one. So if I'm a developer and I've received funding of $1 million today for a team to build games, right? And uh, either build games or build a gaming company around it. I have 4 options. I make a Web3 gaming startup, free to play gaming startup. I make a esports gaming startup, or I make an RMG startup. One by one, just select one option. What would you be the best?
Anuj, your framework is incorrect.
Sorry?
Conceptually, your framework is not correct.
So I don't want to go into the concept. You have been my boss for long to explain me concepts. I would just want to know an answer, quick, rapid fire. So what would you select out of the 4?
Animesh, go for it, yeah.
Esports based startup, of course.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
like
what I-
RMG is too clogged and Web3 is grey, so esports is
Esports.
and F2P does not really, I don't think it's like a great idea in this capital market. So it's esports. based
Esports.
startup.
So if you have $1 million, you would recommend esports startup. Yeah.
I'll put in Web3, yeah.
Web3.
I'm down the rabbit hole.
Web
I'll
3.
personally go bullish on setting up a game studio.
A game studio,
Yeah, yeah,
Free.
building a game.
free to play as a and then monetize across.
Yeah, yeah. Same game can be monetized across RMG, across free to play, across IAP, across Web3, NFTs. All those things can be figured out. Let's just focus on building a great game first.
Got it. Kartik.
I agree with Paavan. I'll also go with free to play because I think with the amount of capital that Anuj mentioned, there is a chance you could actually, have a chance of building a game that can scale, and I think that sets you up quite well.
Got it. So conclusion of the panel is not conclusion. There's no conclusion. You have to pick your own battles. But at a high level, I think you got the flavor of it. Thank you so much, guys, for
Thank
this.
you, Anuj.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Anuj.
Thank
you
you,
so much.
guys.
Thank you.
We were in between lunch and you guys, so thank you for being patient listeners. Thank you.